Setsu is an arrogant idiot who got Isekaid a second time to a world he saved before. However, when he realizes the country is about to go to war again, he decides to hide his identity so he can defeat his enemies while cracking all the baddies he wants. The story begins with Setsu chatting with his childhood friend, Yui, in class when a magic circle suddenly appears and isekais everyone to a desert in a magical world. While the others stare at each other confused, Setsu smirks, knowing that he's been summoned there before. Just then, an army of armored demons on roid rage charges toward them, causing the others to run away and Setsu to stand, looking like an idiot. When a titan attacks him and Yui, Setsu launches it into space with a flick of his finger, then grabs Yui's hand and tries to run away with her. Before long, a human army rushes past them and launches an all-out attack on the titans, buying Setsu and his classmates enough time to hide behind a tree. While Setsu watches the war in surprise, knowing it should have ended by now, a titan approaches him, oozing purple miasma, and he soon discovers it's being controlled by a curse. Suddenly, a royal knight named Elka approaches the students and warns them to retreat from the dangerous war zone. Then she joins her partner, Glein, and wrecks the titans like Sub-Zero on Ultra Instinct, while Setsu and Yui make a run for it. Hours later, Setsu and his classmates arrive at the castle of the King of Destinia, who tells them that they were summoned as heroes to help fight the war against the demons that have been plaguing that world for 5 years. Explaining further, the princess adds that a hero came to their world 5 years ago and ended the raging war between humans and demons. Then she humbly asks if the students would do the same. Realizing they have nowhere else to go, everyone agrees to help, so the queen leads them to their rooms. The following morning, sword training officially begins for the boys in Setsu's class, with Glein as their trainer, while Elka teaches the girls magic. As Yui masters her first spell, Setsu, who has been watching her, smiles in admiration and takes a stroll. Before he gets far, Elka spots him and trash talks him for skipping training, but Setsu rage baits her into attacking him with her wooden sword. In a split second, Setsu dodges her attack and spanks Elka's yams, sending cold shivers down her spine.
Yeah, boy.
Recognizing the impact, Elka immediately recognizes Setsu as her master, the same hero from 5 years ago, and starts begging for his meat. Just then, Glein shows up, sees Setsu sitting on Elka's back, and stares in confusion. After Elka tells him that their master, Setsu, is back, the trio immediately visit their herbalist, Thea, in her workshop to tell her the good news, only to find out that she already knows. After a heartfelt reunion, Setsu asks them about the war with the demons, but before they can respond, Elka and the other two take him somewhere discreet and ask how he returned to their world. Setsu tells them he's not sure himself because, right after his legendary battle with his arch-nemesis, Toma, he was reborn in a different world with his memories and magic power intact before he was summoned again. Explaining further, he tells them the Titans are under a curse and asks if they think Toma's the one controlling them behind the scenes. They tell him that although they're not sure if Toma's even alive, since they've been searching for him for years with no luck, there's a high chance that he's behind this. Moments later, the king gathers his subjects and declares war on the demons. Hearing this, Glein urges him to wait for the emissary they sent to the demonic continent before taking any action. However, the daft princess and the king argue that the demons attacked first, then they trash-talk the former hero for making them sign the peace treaty back then, and conclude that war is the only way. Later that night, Glein meets with Setsu, alongside Thea and Elka, informs him of the king's decision, and adds that he's bought them some time to think of a more diplomatic plan. At this, Setsu decides to leave the capital to search for Toma and stop this war. Glein and the others immediately assume that they'll be traveling together, but Setsu tells them he needs to do this alone. Shortly after, Setsu and his peers try to enter a private storeroom within the palace covertly, but along the way, Elka stupidly knocks out a guard, making them hasten their search until they find Setsu's sacred sword, Kuromaru. Just then, the other guards find the unconscious guard and sound the alarm, but Glein and Thea decide to stall them, while Elka escorts Setsu to the gates. There, Yui runs towards Setsu and asks him where he's going. In response, Setsu tells her that he's been summoned to that world before and that he's going to meet his old friend to stop the war. Scared, Yui volunteers to accompany him, promising to be useful, but Setsu gently tells her that he doesn't want to endanger her. Touched, Yui has Setsu close his eyes, then she pulls off a Firewind combo magic trick that surprises him, and promises to be much stronger when he returns, after which Setsu leaves. 5 years ago, Setsu met with a famous jeweler to purchase a special magical brooch, but the old man refused to sell it to him, thinking he's just a brokey like y'all watching. However, when Setsu dropped a fat bag of gold coins, the grumpy old man switches moods faster than Loki on a normal Tuesday, and releases the brooch immediately. After Setsu leaves, his granddaughter, Ruri, shows up and asks him why he changed his mind so quickly, especially after telling her that pride is the most important thing for a craftsman. However, Grandpa tells her it's because money is always an exception to that rule. Back in the present, Ruri observes her grandpa's funeral in silence. Since she's inherited his jewelry shop, she decides to deliver her grandpa's final job to its destination to honor his name. One night, while riding her wagon through the woods, her horse suddenly stops in its tracks, and a demonic beast hits her wagon right after, destroying it. Ruri immediately rushes over to pick up the brooch case and her bag, completely forgetting about the beast, but when she faces it again, she trembles in raw, unfiltered fear. Just then, Setsu pops up, destroys the beast, and checks on Ruri. Thinking he's just a bandit, Ruri immediately promises to pay him once she delivers her goods, but Setsu assures her he doesn't need her paper. Confused, Ruri says her grandpa told her there's always a price, but Setsu calls him trash, helps her up, and scolds her for not hiring a guard in the first place. As he's about to leave, Ruri tries to hire him as her guard, but when Setsu refuses, she activates cute puppy eye mode and ultimately convinces him to guard her for free until they reach the next port town. The next morning, Setsu and Ruri arrive at the port town of Marseille and admire how quickly its trade has grown over the last 5 years. While touring the place, Ruri asks Setsu if he's been to the town before. When he tells her he was there before the war ended 5 years ago, Ruri keeps quiet and moves on to ask a few shipmasters if they can take her to the demonic kingdom. After getting rejected by every single one of them, Ruri loses hope and decides to try one last time. Just then, 3 bullies, claiming to be Knights of Destinia, stop her and demand her identification documents. After confirming that she's indeed a merchant, they demand to see what's in her leather bag, but Ruri coldly tells them she can't show them, as it's a really important piece of merchandise. At this, the Knights try to force her to open the bag, but Setsu stops them and dares the useless scumbags to try to fight him. Luckily for them, as they're about to fall into his trap, a crowd gathers and trash talks the Knights, causing them to retreat. Later that evening, Ruri buys Setsu a box of sandwiches to thank him for his help, but Setsu praises her for standing up to those bullies in the first place, leaving Ruri a little shy. Moving on, he asks Ruri what she plans to do now that no ship will take her to the demonic kingdom, and Ruri tells him, with a sad look, that she'll keep searching till she finds one. Feeling sorry for her, Setsu tells her he was on his way to the demonic continent anyway and would be happy to take her there with him for free if she agrees to rest at an inn for the night, leaving Ruri with no other choice. By nightfall, after Setsu showers, Ruri shows him the brooch her grandpa tasked her to deliver, but for some reason, Setsu recognizes it. She then tells him a bit about her grandpa, adding that in his final days, someone came in to request a repair for a brooch he'd made long ago. Despite being terminally ill, Ruri says her grandpa managed to repair the brooch, but on the night he died, he lectured her on what true pride is and trusted her with his final job. After telling her story, she gives Setsu the box and rushes into the bathroom to shower. Then Setsu infuses the brooch with magic and realizes that it's the same brooch he initially cast protection magic on 5 years ago. By midnight, the 3 bully knights from earlier barge into the inn and walk up to Setsu's room to beat him up. As they arrive, Setsu grabs Ruri and his sacred sword and jumps out of the window to escape. The knights immediately follow and try to block his path, but Setsu jumps on one of their heads and keeps trolling the guards until they reach a dead end. Before long, the 3 goons in night clothing catch up to them and demand that he apologize, but Setsu rage baits them even more and jumps off the city wall, shocking both Ruri and the knights themselves. In a split second, a large sea monster named Levia suddenly surfaces and catches Setsu and Ruri. After apologizing for calling the monster on such short notice, Setsu has it carry them to the demonic kingdom. As for the 3 knights, they literally wet their pants in shock, realizing how lucky they were not to fight Setsu, and ultimately decide to forget everything. The next day, Levia drops Setsu and Ruri offshore and wages a highly entertaining battle against the kraken that's been plaguing the demonic kingdom's coastline. After slaughtering it, she returns to her human form, stained with squid ink, and Setsu introduces her to Ruri as the legendary god of the ocean. Afterwards, Levia crashes out at Setsu for not helping her fight the giant kraken earlier, but Setsu says it's because he enjoyed the fight. Hearing this, Levia angrily calls him a terrible person for disappearing for over 5 years, only to suddenly show up and use her as his personal ride. However, before Setsu can respond, Ruri asks what they plan on doing with the kraken's huge carcass, so Setsu cuts up some parts and makes delicious squid rings that Ruri and Levia enjoy. Now that they're in the demonic kingdom, Levia suggests they check into the nearby fishing village of Volsi before crossing the treacherous mountains of Evilbaro to reach the demon lord's castle. Noticing Ruri's confusion, Setsu tells her that the castle is her delivery destination, and Levia also adds that she remembers Deez's sending the brooch out for repairs. Confused, Ruri asks Levia if she knows who this Deez's person is, but when Levia tells her that Deez's is their dear friend and lord of the demonic kingdom, her brain goes into airplane mode. At that point, Levia finishes her meal and tries to return to sea, but Setsu asks her to accompany him. Pissed, Levia reminds him that she kept her promise and maintained peace on the seas, but now that he's returned with another woman for that matter, he's treating her like some roadside ramp he can walk all over. As Setsu tries to explain himself, 3 random annoying little demons approach him out of nowhere and trash talk him for pissing Levia off. To shut them up, Setsu stuffs their mouths with his squid rings and tries to shoo them away. However, the brats enjoy the squid rings so much that they convince Levia and Setsu to take the Kraken back to Volsi to cook up a good feast for them. Elsewhere, Deez's generals meet to discuss the terrible giant Kraken plaguing their seas and stopping their trade with the human merchants. One of them decides to launch an all-out attack on the squid. Meanwhile, Setsu arrives in Volsi with the Kraken's carcass. Seeing this shocks the villagers so much that they host an all-night party to celebrate the death of the terrible monster that's been plaguing them and serve Levia, the Kraken Slayer, their finest wine and best sushi. As for Setsu, he slices the Kraken carcass into squid rings at insane speeds, deep fries lots of them, and has Ruri serve them to the villagers. Meanwhile, Deez's personal guard, Vlad, who's patrolling near Volsi, sees the light from the distance and fears that it's been set on fire by the humans, so he runs towards the village to protect it. Moments later, after the party, Ruri calls Levia over for a discussion and asks how she knows Setsu. Levia lies, telling her that she fought Setsu 5 years ago and lost to him honorably, when in reality, she knows that Setsu knocked some sense into her thick head after she went on a rampage and convinced her to help him end the war. Believing her, Ruri says that must be how she met Deez's. However, Levia stares at her in confusion, adding that she thought Setsu was pretty famous in Destinia. At that point, it all clicks in Ruri's tiny skull, and she recoils in shock after realizing that Setsu really is the famous hero. Soon after, Levia complains to Ruri about Setsu for disappearing on her and suddenly appearing to use her as her boat. Then she stares at the guy as he hands out squid rings like a lovesick girl, causing Ruri to assume she's in love with Setsu. As Levia debunks that, Vlad busts into the village, asking for the humans so he can destroy them, only to realize that he was tripping. Later that night, while Levia feasts on raw fish at the village's loading dock, Vlad shows up. As he politely asks Levia why she's there, Setsu arrives, reintroduces himself, and asks Vlad if he came to the village because of the war. Vlad tells Setsu that he initially came to seek Levia's help, but now that Setsu is here, he humbly asks them to save the Demon Lord. Once they agree, Vlad tells them that the Demon Lord is being coerced into marrying a mega-wealthy merchant named Terran through a subjugation curse she cannot resist. Explaining further, he adds that the humans rekindled the war that ended 5 years ago by invading their kingdom with armored titans. However, Setsu finds that hard to believe because the very same thing happened back in Destinia, and everyone believed the demons were behind it. Moving on, Vlad says that while the war tension rose, Terran suddenly showed up and offered to stop the war if the Demon Lord married him, which smells fishier than Hawk to a girl's peaches. Hearing this, Setsu lashes out at Vlad for willingly allowing Deez's to enslave herself for peace, but as Vlad responds, Levia stops them and tells Setsu they have to save her. With this, Setsu and Levia start running through the jungle towards the Demon Lord's castle. While doing so, a pack of wolves surrounds them, but Levia easily destroys them and asks Setsu what he plans to do once they get to the castle. When Setsu tells her he'll blow up the entire marriage, Levia asks how he'll stop the war without the merchant, and Setsu tells her that he suspects that the scumbag is actually behind it. Noticing her confusion, Setsu reminds her about what Vlad told them about the humans attacking first, and then adds that he saw the same thing when he arrived at Destinia. What this means is that this Terran guy, who suddenly showed up selling peace for Deez's hand in marriage, must know the mastermind who set it up, and they're going to find out how much he truly knows. Just then, another wolf pack attacks them, but Levia destroys them, shocking Setsu, and continues running with him until they finally arrive at the Demon Lord's castle. Meanwhile, Deez's recalls how, several years ago, she was exhausted from fighting an endless war against the humans to protect her people, until Setsu suddenly showed up, defeated her, and proposed an era of true peace. After Deez's accepted his offer, Setsu gave her a special brooch as a token of their reconciliation, and she accepted it wholeheartedly. Sadly, just months after the war ended, Vlad told Deez's that Setsu was missing. Even so, Deez's refused to give up on her promise to Setsu to preserve the peace across the lands, as she ordered Vlad to continue rebuilding their nation. 5 years later, Deez's strolls through her kingdom's market square with Vlad to see her people and enjoy the results of their long-lasting peace. Just then, the brooch she was wearing cracks, making her sad. But Vlad tells her about a famous jeweler in Destinia that can fix it for her, and she urges him to send it out for repairs. A few nights later, a soldier barges into Diza's throne room and informs her that a Destinian army is invading them. Despite being shocked, Diza prepares their army for retaliation, then sends 2 demon emissaries to Destinia immediately to investigate this unprecedented attack, all in a bid to keep her promise of peace to Setsu. A month later, Diza slowly runs out of options. As it turns out, her emissaries still haven't returned from Destinia. Just then, Vlad shows up and informs her that Big Daddy Terran, the ultra-rich merchant, is there to see her, so Diza decides to meet him. During the meeting, the arrogant jerk tells Diza that he plans to use the power of his company to end the war with Destinia in exchange for Diza's hand in a slave marriage. After reading the contract's terms, Diza refuses, but Terran presents the cursed necklace anyway, shocking Vlad and the others, and tells Diza that the ball is in her court. Vlad immediately tries to reject the request, but to his surprise, Diza asks Terran to give her time to think about it, and so Terran leaves. Later that evening, Vlad visits Diza in her private room and tries to convince her not to give in to Terran's deception, claiming that he's willing to sacrifice himself to defend her throne. But Diza tells him she's already made up her mind. Following this, she walks to the window to wallow in self-pity, while Vlad leaves in anger. By nightfall, Terran rides his carriage with his secret associate and asks him if they can finally end this tiresome charade of a war they've been holding up, especially now that the demonic kingdom will soon be theirs. When the disguised man says no, Terran asks why they're not backing down, and the guy says it's because it's the will of his master. On the day of the wedding, countless happy humans and angry demons gather at the demonic kingdom's auditorium to witness Terran and Diza's marriage. Before long, Diza walks down the aisle, dressed in an ugly white wedding dress, and presents herself before Terran and the priest. Once it's time to exchange vows, Terran takes out the cursed necklace, presents it to the congregation, and gives an annoying speech about how he'll become the new demon king, with Diza as his slave, all just to bring eternal prosperity and everlasting peace to the world. Luckily for Diza, as he's about to put it on her neck and lock her in forever, Setsu breaks into the church from the window, lands on the altar, and tells Diza that he's there to save her. Shocked, Terran immediately orders his cloaked bodyguards to attack Setsu, but Levia destroys them all with her water blasts. Following this, Terran's secret associate shows up and traps Levia with an off-brand shadow possession jutsu. Then, he attacks her with magic shadow spikes, but Setsu destroys them in a split second, appears behind the guy, and knocks him out. Seconds later, the secret associate gets back up, mentions something about reporting to his master, and attacks Setsu again, but Setsu destroys his pesky shadow spikes and slams him to the wall yet again. At this point, the spineless coward realizes he can't beat Setsu, so he destroys the wall and dips. Right after, Diza hugs him tightly, crying and telling him how much she misses him. While Setsu hugs and pats her head, Levia points to Terran's bodyguards. Upon checking them, they discover that they're magic soldiers made from curses. Then Setsu picks up the cursed necklace and destroys it after realizing that Toma's the true mastermind behind the fake war. Hearing this, Diza offers to help him track Toma down, but Setsu tells her he has to visit the king of the beastmen, Regulus, next and will need her to handle things at the demonic kingdom, which she agrees to. Just then, Vlad and Ruri rush into the auditorium. While Vlad freaks out over the damage, Ruri approaches Setsu and hands him the brooch box so he can be the one to give it to Diza. After collecting it, Setsu attaches the brooch to Diza's necklace, leaving Diza extremely happy to see her Prince Charming again. Moments later, Setsu, alongside Levia, meets with Diza, Vlad, and Ruri and promises to take her wherever she wants once the war is over. Just then, Ruri tells Setsu that Diza kindly allowed her to open a shop in the demonic kingdom, and that it's a dream come true, but Setsu asks Diza a few questions to ensure she's truly okay with it. After confirming that she is, he fist bumps Vlad, says his final goodbyes, and leaves the castle with Levia. Several years ago, back when Setsu was still young and on Earth, his mom tried to introduce him to Yuhi, so they could be friends, but Setsu ain't no simp, so he refused. At first, Yui thought Setsu was one of those cringy alpha male wannabes, but as she spent more time with him, she slowly learned how kind and thoughtful he actually is. One evening, while returning home from school with Setsu, Yui checks out a poster about a summer class and tells him she would like to attend the same school as Setsu. As they continue walking home, Yui shyly asks Setsu what he thinks about them attending the same school, but our idiotic, cockblocker protagonist tells her to aim for an easier school to avoid making things harder for herself in the long run. Disappointed, Yui runs off and starts attending extra night classes alone, hoping to pass her mock exams. However, several weeks later, while she's in a park, she learns that she failed them anyway. As she walks home in shame, 3 jerks block her and try to coerce her into joining their gang, since she's brain dead anyway, but lucky for her, Setsu shows up and shoos them away. With them gone, Setsu asks Yui what she plans on doing now that she's realized she's not good enough. After a brief silence, Yui insists on attending the same school as him, so Setsu decides to help her study and pass the exams no matter what, leaving Yui incredibly glad to have him by her side. At present, Elka and Glein continue training the newbies in attack magic, but when it is Yuhi's turn, she annihilates her target, leaving the others shocked. After training, Yuhi approaches Elka and Glein and asks if they're Setsu's companions. After Glein confirms that they are, Elka mentions how much she respects Setsu and wants to stand by him forever, then urges Yuhi to ask her a question. Yuhi tells them she wants special training so she can stand beside Setsu, too. Although Elka is shocked by her request, she instructs Yuhi to meet her on the castle walls by nightfall to begin. There, Elka tells Yuhi the kind of sentiment she needs to fight alongside Setsu, but Yuhi tells her she lacks strength, and then challenges Elka to a spar. In response, Elka lunges at Yuhi, engaging her in melee combat before attacking with ice magic. After Yuhi destroys the ice with fire magic, Elka continues their melee battle. Seconds later, she stops and assures Yuhi that although she is strong enough to go into battle, she still lacks one final thing to survive. To help her figure out what that is, Elka takes her into the kingdom's monster-infested sewer tunnels, where soldiers undergo their final training, and pits Yuhi against off-brand Bombardilio Crocodilio. Yuhi is scared out of her mind, but thanks to Elka's encouragement, she lands a fire spell on the monster and celebrates too early. Not long after, the monster bites her staff and gashes her left arm, but Yuhi repels it with yet another fire spell. At this junction, Elka tells Yuhi to finish it, but when she hesitates, Elka tells her that the one thing she lacks is the resolve to take lives to protect her kingdom. Hearing this, Yuhi immediately recalls the battle she experienced with the others the day they were summoned, but as she stands there, Elka destroys the monster and walks away, leaving Yuhi devastated. The next evening, Thea visits Yuhi, heals her wound, and assures her that Elka is only being this hard on her because she really cares for and wants her to be able to stand by Setsu's side. She then asks Yuhi why she wants to be with Setsu so badly, despite knowing how dangerous it'll be for her, and Yuhi says it's because she wants to help Setsu for once in her life, since he's always been the one helping her. Hearing this, Thea wishes her good luck. Then she gets up to leave and tells grumpy Elka outside not to worry so much about forcing the determination to take lives on Yuhi, as she's sure she'll figure it out by herself soon enough. Later on, Glein finds Yuhi sulking all alone in the yard, so he takes her somewhere private and asks if she's worried about her private lesson with Elka. When Yuhi confirms that she is, Glein assures her that being hesitant about taking lives is perfectly natural, even if it's for a good reason. At this, Yuhi asks Glein how he found and justified his determination to fight, and Glein says he just chose to make others suffer rather than watching the people around him suffer. Even so, Glein advises her to find her own resolve, not copy someone else's, and leaves. Shortly after, Yuhi gets the epiphany she needs, so during her next training session, she destroys her target with a humongous fire spell, shocking both Elka, Thea, and Glein. Later that night, Yuhi takes Elka back to the sewer, claiming to have found her reason to fight. When Bombardilio Crocodilio approaches her again, Yuhi tells Elka to hold her beer, then she roasts the poor fellow with a fireball. Afterwards, Elka praises Yuhi's newfound determination to end a life, but Yuhi assures her that the monster isn't dead, as she's made her decision to win a fight without destroying her opponent's life. Impressed, Elka urges her to become much stronger than she is now, and Yuhi promises to do exactly that. The next day, Glein gathers all the summonees for a meeting and informs them to prepare to leave at dawn for the demonic nation of Aviltheon to launch their first campaign against the demons. After the meeting, Yuhi stays back and strengthens her resolve to fight for her one and only Setsu-san. Several hundred miles away, while Setsu and Levia ride a carriage to the seaside, Setsu complains about Levia's incessant eating, laziness, and laid-back attitude throughout the trip. However, Levia tells him she's only trying to enjoy her free time before he uses her as his makeshift boat again. Even so, Setsu isn't satisfied with sitting around all day, so he asks Levia to teleport them to the seaside using transfer magic, since she's the god of the sea. However, Levia tells him transfer magic is much harder to do than normal magic, then urges him to give her more snacks so she can continue enjoying herself. Just then, their carriage stops, putting them on high alert, and seconds later, one of Setsu's old acquaintances, Alizi, boards the carriage with her little sister, Amel. When she sees Setsu, she instantly recognizes him as her beloved master from 5 years ago, and sheds tears of joy over meeting him again. As they all continue their journey, Setsu introduces Alizi to Levia as his top pupil in the past, and Alizi asks him where he's been these past 5 years. After telling her everything that's happened, Setsu asks Alizi to accompany him to the Beastman's continent, just like she did back then, but Alizi says she can't do that now because she's in trouble. Apparently, ever since Setsu disappeared, Alizi took on several monster hunting jobs to continue her training and did well, until one day, when she accepted a village's request to slay a dragon. On her first day there, the village chief made her stay over at Amel's house. Over dinner, while Amel picks some fruit for Alizi, Alizi asks if she'd always lived there alone, but Amel says the house used to belong to her brother. Explaining further, she says her older brother found her all alone 2 years ago and took her in as family. Things were good for a while, but on the day the dragon first appeared, her brother disappeared without a trace, leaving her all alone again. Feeling sorry for her, Alizi decides to stay in the village for a while and be a big sister to her once she's done with her jobs, and this makes Amel incredibly happy. At this point in the story, Setsu asks Alizi if she's sure that Amel's brother went missing because he was murdered by the dragon. However, Alizi tells him that wasn't the case because each time there was a dragon attack, several villagers would also go missing. Noticing his confusion, Alizi further explains that after every dragon attack, some evidence of a battle is usually left behind. But this time, absolutely nothing was left behind, almost as if the people were all spirited away. Continuing the story, Alizi says that she took a drastic measure by disabling the village's ward against evil, and told Amel that she was doing it to lure the dragon into the village, so she could beat it. At the time, Amel was scared, but after hearing Alizi's words of comfort, she gave her a butterfly as a gift and ran off, singing happily. Later that evening, when the dragon showed up, Alizi overpowered it and stabbed it on the shoulder, causing the dragon to fly away. Alizi immediately chased after it to finish it off, but when she lost track of it, she returned to the village, only to find out that the rest of the villagers had also gone missing. Devastated, she returned to their place and found Amel all alone and crying, so she decided to hitchhike the carriage they're currently on to go to the city and have someone take care of her. After some small talk, Alizi asks Setsu and Levia if they understand why the villagers are suddenly disappearing. Although they claim not to understand what's happening, they offer to help Alizi solve her problem, leaving her incredibly happy. To figure out what truly happened, Levia jokingly suggests that the villagers were summoned to Hollywood to star as zombies in a Walking Dead knockoff series, but Setsu easily debunks all her crazy ideas. Moving on, she suggests that maybe the evil sea sirens are behind the disappearance, but Setsu reminds her that the village is in the mountains, not the coastlines. Just then, Amel tells them that sea monsters have a distinct smell, which makes them easy to identify, and debunks Levia's siren claim. Moving on, Setsu introduces the concept of space aliens to the girls and explains that they might have been the culprits all along, but Levia smacks his head and urges him to be serious. After ransacking his last functioning brain cell, Setsu asks Levia if she could make the villagers vanish without a trace, but she says no. Confused, Alizi asks Levia if she's a dragon, but Levia tells her she's the god of the seas, leaving Alizi shocked. As they continue their discussion, their carriage suddenly stops at a valley because of the storm, and Setsu asks them why the dragon kept attacking the village over and over. In response, Levia says it's probably because it was attracted there by an enormous magic power. In other words, someone likely used powerful magic in the village before it showed up. With that settled, they ask Alizi and Amel why the villagers disappeared, given how impossible it is for that to happen. Before they can respond, Setsu asks Levia whether transfer magic can be considered a spell that requires high quantities of mana to cast. When she confirms that it can, Setsu concludes that the dragon attacks must have happened after the people vanished, which begs the question, who was using transfer magic to abduct the villagers? After a brief silence, Setsu reminds everyone that transfer magic takes lots of time to prepare, and according to Alizi's story, Amel only arrived in the village 2 years ago, which means she's the culprit. Flustered, Amel tells Setsu that he must be mistaken, but Setsu reminds her what she said earlier about sea monsters having distinct smells, then asks why she said such a thing, if she and Alizi never knew Levia was a sea god. At this, Amel transforms into a dragon, blowing up the entire carriage, and shoots a fireball at Setsu. While dodging the attack, Setsu notices Alizi hiding and urges her to come out and fight with him. As she approaches the dragon, it shoots a fireball at her, but Alizi deflects it, joins Setsu, and causes the dragon to slip and fall from the slippery ground. With the dragon down, Levia infuses Setsu's sword with water magic, and he uses it to slice the dragon's next fire attack. Afterward, Alizi stabs the dragon's forehead, causing it to explode and rain down gold dust. Later that night, as Levia and Setsu cross the sea, Levia asks Setsu if it's okay to leave Alizi on her own, and Setsu assures her that she's a big girl. Meanwhile, Alizi returns to Amel's house in the deserted village, only to find Amel and a bunch of dragons hidden in a room there. Shocked, she draws her sword and asks how she survived, but Amel calls her a brainless oaf if she believes that puny attack ended her. Alizi then asks her where the villagers are, but Amel says she turned them into the armored titans used for fighting the war, before finally revealing that her real name is Meluar, the monster master, the same one Toma gave her. The next day, on the Beastfolk continent, a short, cute adventurer named Shiro is showered with gifts from various stallkeepers for helping them keep their trade routes free of monsters. Shiro is a little overwhelmed by the gifts, but she thanks the stall owners nonetheless, accepts them gratefully, and walks home with some little brats escorting her. That evening, when she gets home, she drops the food and says hi to her sick elder sister, Minako, who praises her for getting so many gifts. However, as Shiro's about to leave, Minako starts coughing violently. so she rushes back and gives her some medicine to calm her down. Once Mineko's situation subsides, Shiro hugs her tightly and promises to make her well, no matter what. The next day, Setsu arrives in Shiro's city with Levia and meets with a beaver man to rent a boat, but the man crashes out at him and tells him to get lost. At this, he signals that she'll have to swim him further inland again, but Levia's veins literally pop out of her head as she tells him she's still tired from the last trip. Hearing this, Setsu apologizes for pushing her too hard and pats her head, but just as Levia promises to take him inland the next day, the boatman tells them a boat will be available by then. Meanwhile, Shiro visits the local innkeeper, Kuroinu, in her inn, exchanges some valuable monster parts for Mineko's expensive medicine, and thanks Kuroinu for always helping her out. In response, Kuroinu tells her she's just being a girl's girl and pats her on the head, leaving Shiro shocked. Right after, she gives Shiro a wanted poster of Setsu and tells her that if she can successfully assassinate him, then she'll be rewarded with more money than she'll ever need to live. However, just before Shiro responds, Setsu and Levia waltz in to rent a room for the night, and Shiro silently leaves. Later that night, after having some dinner with her sister and seeing her condition, Shiro decides to take on Kuroinu's job. Around midnight, she meets with Kuroinu at the inn, who tells her that Setsu's sleeping and asks if she's still hesitating, and assures her that she's made up her mind. However, before starting the job, Shiro tells Kuroinu that she sees her as her big sister, because she's always there for them and treats them like her own siblings. After showering her with praises, Shiro shyly asks Kuroinu if they and Minako can live a remote life somewhere quiet, and Kuroinu promises to do that as long as she finishes the job. With this, Shiro collects Setsu's room key and sneaks up to his room. There, she sees Setsu and Levia sleeping in separate beds and strikes Setsu, only to realize that he wasn't real. At that point, Setsu shows up behind her, kicks her out of his window, jumps down to face her, and asks if she's also one of Toma's goons. After telling Setsu she doesn't know Toma, Shiro activates partial beast transformation and attacks Setsu with a fireball. However, Setsu blocks it easily and slaps some brain cells into her thick skull for nearly damaging the buildings with her fire, knocking her out. Afterwards, he senses cursed magic miasma covering Shiro's body and smells something fishy. To investigate, he takes Shiro home. Once Shiro wakes up, she goes into attack mode, but Minako tells her to be a good girl because Setsu basically dragged her back home after finding her unconscious. At this, Shiro thanks Setsu for helping, but Setsu, who's already figured out their situation, tells Shiro and Minako that Minako's condition isn't an illness but a curse, leaving them in shock. To prove it, he infuses the weird necklace on Minako's neck with light magic and activates the cursed miasma flowing around Minako's body. Levia immediately concludes that Toma's behind it, but as Setsu urges her to focus on saving Minako for now, Shiro grabs his hand and begs him to save her sister at all costs. Feeling sorry for her, Setsu pats her head, swears to save her sister, and tells Minako to prepare her mind for the purification spell. After that, he has Minako lie down, summons a special magical sword named Glutton, and orders it to consume the curse's miasma. As the sword slowly eats away the curse, Kuroino shows up dressed like a ninja and hurls a kunai at Setsu to stop him, but Shiro takes the hit, so Setsu can continue the spell. Given how dangerous it is for Setsu to stop the purification, Levia pushes Kuroinu out with water magic and takes her on. After some small talk, Kuroinu surrounds Levia with several clones of herself and attacks her at once, but Levia destroys every one of them with water magic, repelling the real Kuroinu, and smashes her into the ground. After that, she asks Kuroinu to tell her exactly what Toma is after, promising to spare her life if she answers honestly. But just as Kuroinu is about to respond, Shiro shows up and asks her why she betrayed them. Irritated, Kuroinu calls Shiro a pathetic runt for failing her mission, and tells her never to call her big sister again. Following that, she tells Levia that Toma's real goal is to become a god and destroy every species in their world, but Levia finds it hard to believe. As she tries asking another question, Kuroinu suddenly disappears in a bright light. Not long after, Setsu and Mineko show up, and Shiro hugs her sister dearly, happy to see that she's finally okay. Hours later, while Setsu and Levia sail a boat down the river toward the royal capital, they spot Shiro and Mineko by a ramp and stop. There the duo begs them to take them along if they're heading to the Beastman's royal capital, so Setsu and Levia let them hop on board. 5 years ago, before Setsu disappeared, he trained the Beast King's daughter, Roa, but she refused to accept him as her master, unless he beat her. Out of respect for her wishes, Setsu welcomed her courage and accepted her challenge. At present, the Beast King's subjects argue with each other in a Senate hearing at the royal capital, over the Beast Kingdom's next move in the ongoing war. While one ugly beastman suggests they overpower both the demons and the humans, others argue that protecting their pride and citizens comes first. As for the king, Regulus, he just sits in his chair, chilling out in his zen pose until his ears pick up a familiar sound. Recognizing it, he informs Roa, who's sitting right beside him, and she immediately rushes out to confirm if her father heard well. Meanwhile, Setsu arrives at the capital city's loading dock, along with Shiro, Levia, and Minako, and argues with the guards there to let them all in since he's close pals with Regulus. While the guards refuse, Roa pounces on them from above, knocking them out cold, sniffs Setsu's pheromones, and realizes that her Setsu is really back. She then hugs Setsu tightly, shocking Minako and Shiro, and tries to sneak attack him from behind, but Setsu grabs her arm and wrestles her to the ground. Following this, the two hold hands and walk to Regulus's throne in the trees, with Setsu caressing Roa's cheeks and making her sing happy noises on the way. When they arrive, Regulus attacks Setsu to welcome him, but Setsu chokeslams Bro to the ground and exchanges a few laughs with him. After that, Regulus challenges Setsu to a duel to celebrate his return, but Setsu says he's there to discuss the war between humans and demons. He explains that Tama is alive and planning to destroy the entire world. Hearing this, Regulus suggests joining forces with Setsu to fight Tama, but Setsu tells him to stay put and let Roa accompany him instead. Just as Regulus is about to respond, Roa's fiancé, Ruga, suddenly shows up, interrupts their conversation, and advises Regulus not to risk their manpower for the sake of other nations. Regulus reminds him that Setsu is also their comrade, but Ruga argues that there's no way to know whether Setsu is still on their side, especially after disappearing for 5 years. Realizing he's right, Regulus allows Ruga to challenge Setsu to a duel, adding that the winner will be betrothed to Roa. Setsu immediately tries to sit this one out, but the bird-brained buffoon tells him to meet him in the arena by noon the next day. Shortly after, Regulus apologizes to Setsu for the minor inconvenience and promises to give him an army and an extra kitty once he wins, but Roa latches onto Setsu and tells her father that Setsu is the only man besides him that she will happily call daddy. Later that night, Roa visits Ruga in his quarters and warns him to back out of the fight before Setsu rearranges his bones the wrong way, but Ruga tells her he won't do it because it'll hurt his pride. He then shows Roa a magic rune on his shoulder, which an Eastern mage gave him earlier, one that converts strong will into raw strength, and tells her that he plans on overwhelming Setsu with that power to protect her. Saddened, Ro walks out of his quarters and explains that his disgusting ego is exactly why she never fell in love with him. The following day, dozens of people gather around the arena to watch Ruga and Setsu fight each other. At first, Setsu is a little shocked at the turn-up, but Roa, the insensitive brat, approaches him and tells him to knock Ruga out for her, right in front of Ruga. Once the fight begins, Ruga lunges at Setsu and attacks him a few times, but Setsu dodges and easily parries his attacks like they're nothing, leaving Ruga shell-shocked. Enraged, Ruga transforms into his full beast mode, but to his shock, Setsu grabs him by his tail and slams him to the ground. Seeing this, the entire crowd, including Roa, erupts in joy, and Setsu tells Regulus to stop the duel so he can borrow Roa and be on his merry way. Just then, Ruga gets back up, and Setsu urges him to quit now to avoid losing any more aura. However, Ruga gets so angry that he recalls how jealous he felt back then seeing Setsu fight with his Roa, and lets the curse inside his magic rune overwhelm and transform him into a demonic wolf. Following this transformation, he slams Setsu into the wall with just a single breath, causing Regulus to call off the duel and begin evacuating the audience. At that point, Levia gives Setsu his sacred sword, which he then uses to slash Ruga's body. When Ruga still attacks him, Setsu slices off his right arm, but it regrows instantly, and he goes on a full-on rampage. Roa immediately enters the arena and tries to take the poor guy down, but Setsu tells her he has a plan to rid him of the curse, although it's a risky one. Hearing this, Ro promises to protect him while he activates the spell, but as Setsu's about to summon Glutton, the entire arena gets foggy, Ruga's head vaporizes, slaughtering him, and Toma emerges from it to say hi to Setsu. While he rants, the brat confronts him, demanding to know if he tricked Ruga into using his curse, but Toma gets so irritated by Roa interrupting him that he stretches his hand to obliterate her. Setsu immediately tells him off, but Toma gets disappointed to see him protecting someone other than him, and promises to make him truly happy by destroying everyone, so they can finally be together. At this, Setsu tells him to shut the heck up and swears to cut him down again, but Toma reminds him that Destinia has already begun their invasion against the demonic continent, and asks if he can truly protect everyone this time. Having said that, Toma says his goodbyes and disappears, leaving Ruga's corpse behind. Shortly after, Setsu meets with Regulus, who blames himself for letting the duel happen, tells him not to waste time sulking, and tells him he'll be heading to the demonic continent immediately to stop Toma. When Regulus promises to support him, Setsu fist bumps him to thank him, then moves on to check up on Roa, who's still at the arena. There he asks Roa if she's feeling okay, but she assures him that she is and will mourn Ruga later. 10 years ago, Setsu and Tama were summoned at the same time to Destinia to fight as heroes against the demonic kingdom. Right after their summoning, the king welcomed them as heroes from another world, sent to save them, but Setsu refused to help them because he didn't want anybody to dump their problems on him, leaving the king shocked. Not long after, while Setsu practices swordsmanship, Toma asks how he can stay so calm after being dropped into this backwater world for no reason, and Setsu replies that he's more focused on becoming stronger. Hearing this, Toma admits he's still scared of dying in the war, but Setsu tells him that complaining is pointless because doing nothing, especially in times like these, is even worse. On the way back to their room, Setsu acknowledges Toma's fears about the war and asks him to help stop it. Scared, Toma chickens out, but Setsu reminds him that they're the chosen heroes, calls Toma his only ally, and ultimately convinces him to join the fight by promising to protect him. A few months later, Setsu gets even stronger and packs his bag to explore the world he wants to save. Since Toma is still a disgusting crybaby, he refuses to go with Setsu, but promises to be strong enough to stop the war by the time he returns. By nightfall, Toma watches in sadness as his only ally leaves the city with Glein, Elka, and Thea, and holds him to his promise. As time passes, Toma gets stronger and is promoted as a knight with the honorific title, the Silver Hero. After his swearing in, Toma stares into the skies as he strolls the city with his new squad and tells Setsu, wherever he is, that he's gotten one step closer to their promise. A few weeks later, Toma leads his army into battle, takes down the enemy fortress, and slaughters every single demon hiding in there. Afterwards, he stumbles into a sacred room with a weird altar in the middle and spots two demonic priests shrieking and begging for his mercy like banshees. After slaughtering them, he orders his subordinate, who just came in, to reorganize the survivors so they'll head out immediately, causing the subordinate to leave. Unfortunately, as Toma's about to leave, a bright light shines upon him, and a divine voice suddenly starts speaking about weaklings and the pitiful humans that shouldn't exist. Confused, Toma turns back to see a cursed pendant oozing miasma, and hears the voice loudly telling him that it can see the envy, despair, and hatred inside his heart. Unfazed, Toma continues to leave, but when the necklace tells him it can see his true desire, he confronts it. At this, the voice promises to grant his heart's desires by giving him power, and immediately starts diffusing the necklace's power into the air, causing Toma to remember how sad he felt seeing Setsu go. After possessing his mind, the voice urges him to take the necklace to fulfill his desire, and Toma gives in to the temptation. Moments later, Toma wakes up and finds himself in a sea of his subordinates' corpses. As he walks around, he steps on one of his subordinates' glasses, recalls his last interaction with them before the battle, and keeps on walking to fight more enemies. Just then, a knight approaches him and informs him that the humans and demons are planning to sign a peace treaty. As Toma's about to respond, a carriage strolls past them, and he sees Setsu inside, chatting and laughing with Elka, Klein, and the others. At some point, Setsu meets Toma's gaze for a second, but he ignores him immediately and continues yapping. Days later, after the peace treaty is officially signed, Glein unveils a monument to memorialize the peace, then he begins the party. Later that night, during the party, Toma approaches Setsu on the city wall and praises him for ending the war. As he's about to remind him of their promise, Elka calls Setsu to come join them downstairs to start the party, and Setsu ends their meeting. As he leaves, Toma calls him back, tells him how hard he worked to keep Destinia in shape, and tells him that he's found a way to go back to their original world together. To his shock, Setsu tells him he's never going back to Earth, especially since there's still so much more to see in this one, leaving Toma extremely devastated. While he wallows in despair and self-pity, wishing Setsu didn't have to abandon him, the devilish voice, now embedded in the crystal inside his sword, transforms Toma's despair into dark magic and possesses him completely. Now a different being, Toma tells Setsu that he'll destroy every living creature in that world just to return Setsu to the way he was at the beginning. Then he expels a great deal of dark magic from his sword, forcing Setsu to block it with Glutton, and keeps attacking Setsu like a deranged maniac. Setsu immediately does his best to block to avoid harming Toma, but when Toma starts threatening to unalive all the friends he's made so they can be alone, he goes all out and slams Glutton onto Toma's shoulders, causing a huge mana explosion that returns him to his old world. Shortly after the battle, Toma staggers back to the sacred room in the fortress he conquered earlier, throws the crystal away, and lies there to die a pathetic weakling. Just then, the crystal comes to life again and shows him a live feed of some less fortunate vagrants currently being forced into dangerous experiments, led by witch doctors, for magical research and data collection. After shocking and nearly murdering a patient, the witch doctors hang their next test subject over a vat of acid, causing the others to scream in despair. Seeing this, Toma realizes there are others like him, who hate this world, so he picks the crystal up, destroys the entire research facility, and recruits the vagrants and beast people as his new subordinates so they can destroy the whole world together. At present, as the Destinian army fleet slowly approaches the shores of the demonic kingdom, Thea performs a quick magic scan of the area and senses a trace of Toma's magic power, confirming that he's indeed on the demonic continent. At this, she and Glein conclude that Toma is definitely behind the entire war. However, since everyone is already preparing for the impending battle, they realize they can't simply reveal the truth, or they'll be treated as spies. Unsure of what to do next, Glane asks about Setsu, but Yuhi reassures them, after recalling what Setsu told her the day he left Estonia, that she's certain he's doing everything he can to stop the war wherever he is. Realizing she's right, they decide to buy as much time as possible and minimize the casualties until Setsu arrives, then finish with a team huddle to encourage one another. Not long after, their boats arrive at the demonic kingdom's landing area, and the human soldiers immediately lay siege to the demon's fortress. To protect themselves, the demons fire magical plasma beams at the humans, but as for Glane and his squad, they choose to circle around the flank and strike the enemy. Moments later, the human mages retaliate with their magic plasma attacks and manage to pull down some of the demons' walls. At this point, the demons amp up their magic attacks to match the human mages and end up taking out a few humans. As the battle rages on, Thea and Elka tell Yui's classmates to avoid chasing the injured enemies and instead wait for the enemy to focus their attention on the front, so they can charge through in one go. That said, Glane, Elka, and Thea all launch magical attacks on the enemies, while Yuhi's classmates dive into battle to help out. One time, a scared classmate nearly gets skewered into shish kebab by a demon, but Yuhi roasts the poor dude, saving her, and pets the crybaby. Before long, the demons retreat, and Yuhi spots a group of boys from her class standing over a wounded demon, scared but ready to finish him off. She immediately screams at them to spare the guy, but they argue that this isn't a parody of Clash of Clans, it's real war. Even so, Yuhi runs her holier-than-thou mouth, telling them that murdering an injured soldier is just wrong. Just then, Amel's annoying cackle echoes through the air as she summons several armored titans along with her new puppet, Alizi, through magic circles to continue the battle. Seeing this, the humans demand to know where Alizi is from, but she immediately starts cutting them down. Meanwhile, Elka freezes the armored titans as they attack the others, and Glane cuts them apart, only to realize that there are half-dead people inside them. As they wonder who could have done this, Amel pops up beside Alizi, causing Glane, Elka, and the others to immediately recognize them both. Elka instantly asks Amel what she did to Alizi, but Amel says she turned her into a doll, then urges them to let her turn them into dolls as well. Irritated, Elka immediately attacks them, but Alizi blocks it, causing her to step back. At this, Amel slashes her wrists, sprays some of her blood on the ground, and uses the mana concentrate inside it to summon 4 magical beasts. Immediately after, 2 beasts attack Elka and Glane, but they easily knock them down. Seeing this, Amel orders the other summoned beast to attack, but Glane blocks its attack, and Thea destroys it with her magic. Seconds later, as they prepare to take down the last beast, Yuhi returns after slaughtering it herself, leaving Amel back at square one. Pissed, Amel orders Alizi to destroy them for her, but Glane charges forward and knocks Alizi unconscious. Following that, Elka stabs Amel's magic organ, so she'll never be able to toy with people's lives again, and leaves her bleeding profusely by the river. Refusing to die, Amel goes all out, using the extra magic organ those witch doctors etched into her body to make her the ultimate weapon, and activates the dangerous limit break spell. With this spell, she summons a 3-headed chimera beast, and magically fuses her body with theirs, all while fueling her magic power with her own life force and hatred. After gaining control over the beast, she attacks them with 3 red plasma beams, but Thea and Yuhi cast a defensive shield that blocks the attack. With Elka's party out of strength, Amel controls her beasts to prepare their next attack. However, before they fire, Alizi appears behind Amel and stabs her extra magic organ. While Amel dies, Alizi hugs her, remembers their first meeting, and has Thea and the others watch as Amel and her chimera monster turn to stone. In the aftermath, Elka and Glane administer some healing magic to Alizi and sigh in relief when it works. Sadly, just when they thought they were out of danger, Amel's colleague, Scarface, pops out of the river, pissed that Amel has been defeated, and challenges Elka's party. Given how fatigued they are from the last fight, Yuhi volunteers to lead the attack against Shadow this time. Hearing this, Elka immediately tells her to stand back, as it's too dangerous for her, but Yuhi convinces them to let her take on Shadow while they provide her with backup. Thankfully, as their duel is about to begin, Setsu arrives on the battlefield in style, praises Yuhi for holding Shadow down for him, and tells her he'll be taking it from there. Seeing him, Yuhi immediately latches her body onto him, but Setsu urges her to calm down so he can focus on the fight. After detaching herself, Yuhi goes on all fours and asks Setsu to sit on her back, but Setsu smacks her forehead and tells her to give him space to fight. With that settled, Scarface removes his cloak, and Setsu immediately recognizes him as the shadow guy from Deez's palace not too long ago. After their touching reunion, Scarface covers himself in miasma and asks Setsu why he cares so much about protecting the weak. When Setsu tells him it's because he doesn't care about strength or pleasure, Scarface gets even more pissed and swears to destroy the world, kickstarting their battle. Elsewhere, Kuroino knocks down a bunch of human soldiers to stop them from escaping, until Shiro and Menako show up to stop her. At first, they try to defeat her using talk no jutsu. However, Kuroai no gets so irritated by their incessant yaps that she attacks them with her kunai and tells them to just die if they really see her as their big sister. Hearing this, Minako and Shiro refuse to go down without a fight, so Kuroai no fights them in close range. After Shiro and Minako dodge her attacks, Kuroai no slashes both of them almost simultaneously. However, right after that, Shiro kicks Kuroai no's knee to knock her off balance, and Minako knee kicks her into the ground, knocking her out. Sadly, just when they thought they were safe, Kuroai no grabs Minako with her other 4 beastly arms and smacks Shiro to the ground. Following this, she activates the limit breaker, which enlarges her arm extensions, and keeps punching Shiro until she knocks her out. Not long after, Shiro wakes up as Kuroai no condemns her for still thinking they're sisters, and tells her not to ever think they were wrong for seeing her as their big sister. At this, Kuroai no attacks Shiro with all her arm extensions, but after dodging all the attacks, Shiro jumps towards Minako, touches her, and merges with her into a stronger beast. Afterwards, they break free from Kuroai no's arm restraints, swoop right behind Kuroai no, shocking her, and strike fear into Kuroai no's heart with the death stare. Out of desperation, Kuroai no creates more arms and attacks Shiro and Minako, but they repel the arms with the ultimate wind beast technique and rip the other arm extensions off her back, immediately knocking her down. With time running out, Kuroai no lunges at them one last time, but Shiro and Minako sucker punch her belly and separate from each other. As she slowly dies, Kuroai no expresses her disgust at seeing sisters who are so close, causing Shiro and Minako to feel very sorry for her. Back on the front lines, a squad of demon soldiers attacks one of Toma's playthings, a James Charles wannabe named Verdos, only to find out that his entire body is as hard as iron. After removing his disguise, Verdos knocks the demons down and urges them to come at him harder. But Roa shows up, knocks him down with a powerful punch, and feels immense pain in her fist. Seconds later, Verdos gets back up, condemns her for punching him, and reveals that his iron body was created through torturous human experiments, which he endured for years until Toma finally saved him. Hearing this, Roa crashes out and tells him Toma is trying to destroy the world, but Verdos says he doesn't care about that, then starts trash-talking Ruga for being such a weakling. Pissed, Roa lunges at Verdos and kicks him hard in the body, only to end up injuring her leg. Following this, she condemns him for speaking ill of Ruga's legacy and swears on her pride as the daughter of the Beast King to crush him. She then infuses her fists with magic energy, but right before she attacks, Verdos transforms his entire body into hard iron ball bearings and hits Roa all over her body, knocking her out. As he's about to leave, Roa gets back up, pissed and eager to protect her pride, strengthens her abilities with her golden yellow beast magic, and charges at Verdos. Seeing this, Verdos attacks her with his iron ball bearings, but Roa pushes through nonetheless, shocking Verdos himself and punches him. Almost instantly, Verdos hardens his whole body, but Roa wrestles him to the ground and punches him several times until she finally cracks his armor. Pissed, Verdos extends some spikes from his body and stabs Roa right through. Even so, Roa breaks the spikes off her body and uses her last bit of strength to punch a hole right through Verdos' stomach, after which she collapses. Seconds later, Verdos walks over to Roa's body, heals her spike wounds with healing magic, and tells her that he wants her and her foolish pride to live on. As he collapses and she wakes up, meanwhile, Setsu and Scarface go at each other's throats until Scarface traps Setsu with his shadow possession jutsu and attacks him, only for Setsu to break free and block the attack. At that point, Setsu urges Scarface to give up and hand Toma over to him so he can live to fight another day, but Scarface just laughs and activates Limit Breaker, covering his entire body in Skia Moor. Following this, he attacks Setsu, but Setsu dodges it and lands a heavy shoulder attack on him with his sacred blade, only to realize that the armor absorbed the energy. Scarface then smacks Setsu off his body and tells him he has no chance against him at his current state. Realizing he's right, Setsu powers up, covering his body in a familiar red aura of rage, and attacks Scarface with an air slash. After getting hit, Scarface's armor gets destroyed, and Setsu warns him not to move so he won't die. Hearing this, Scarface tells him he can't give up and lose, even if it would mean saving himself, as they were only created as weapons with no place in society. He then charges at Setsu with murderous intent, but Setsu finishes him off with a final slash. Meanwhile, Toma arrives at Jesus' palace. As he walks in, he senses the life force of his subordinates disappear from Earth and reveals his location to Setsu, who immediately senses him. He then walks into Diza's private quarters, finds her discussing the deaths of his subordinates with Levia, draws his cursed sword, releasing a huge burst of dark magic, and promises to show them what true despair is. Before long, Setsu arrives at Diza's quarters to find her and Levia tied up, with Toma standing beside them. Seeing him, Toma starts yapping about murdering them again, but Setsu immediately attacks, and Toma blocks the strike. Following that, the duo exchange a few more words, and Setsu lunges at Toma. After getting him away from the girls, Setsu unleashes his magical power, and Toma does the same, causing an explosion that pushes both of them away. At this, Toma hurls a magical spear at Setsu, but he deflects it into the sky, causing it to crack, and urges Toma to start taking their duel seriously. With this, Toma hurls several magic spears at him, but Setsu deflects them all, only for them to ricochet off the wall back to him. Seeing this, Setsu destroys them with a flying sword attack and lets his guard down. Just then, Toma appears behind him and knocks him down with his flying sword technique. After surviving the attack, the duo lunges at each other, but Setsu easily knocks Toma's sword out of his hands. To keep the fight fair, he drops his sword and punches Toma until Toma pushes him away with a purple plasma ball. After that, Toma summons his sword back into his hands, transforms it into a plasma gun, and fires at Setsu, who immediately dodges the blast. Afterwards, Setsu sees the damage the blast did to the building and realizes he can't let Toma fire that thing carelessly. So, he charges at him, kicks him in the stomach, launching him into the sky, and continues their battle suspended in midair. Soon after, Toma unleashes a barrage of machine gun rounds, but Setsu summons Glutton and has it consume every cursed shot. He then channels the absorbed energy into himself and unleashes 2 devastating air slashes at Toma, who immediately dodges them. As Elka, Glein, and the others join them, Setsu reminds Toma that all his friends are dead and forgotten, and urges him to surrender before it's too late. However, as Toma recalls how lonely he felt after Setsu abandoned him to spend time with his new friends, he loses control of himself, activates Limit Break, and releases a massive burst of magical energy, which Setsu immediately realizes isn't Toma's own. In due time, Toma summons 2 mega plasma guns and fires several plasma blasts at him, but Setsu dodges every shot. Seeing this, Toma aims both his guns at Elka, Glein, and the others and fires 2 plasma beams at them. Setsu immediately absorbs both beams with Glutton, but some of the extra energy falls on Elka and the others, scaring Setsu. After the dust settles, Setsu sees that they protected themselves with a defense barrier, so he attacks Toma with an air slash. After Toma blocks it with his guns, he follows it up with a barrage of rapid air slashes. Toma initially tries to block all the slashes, but eventually his guns break. At this point, Setsu charges towards him and strikes Toma's chest, immediately knocking him out. As he falls from the sky, Toma recalls all the wonderful memories he's shared with Setsu and refuses to accept defeat. He activates a second limit breaker, summoning a more powerful plasma gun, and shoots a death ray at Setsu. Initially, Setsu does his best to block and absorb the ray, but eventually, the ray fries him and sends him crashing into the city wall. Following this, Toma lands near Setsu and starts singing victory songs the moment he realizes that Setsu's been incapacitated. Just then, Setsu gets back up, traps Toma in a dimensional magic ball, and covers himself in a golden aura to finish him off. Scared for his life, Toma tries to use Limit Breaker to break out of the circle. However, Setsu activates the Earth Eater's spell, one of Glutton's other magical techniques, stabs the ground, and traps Toma in an earth ball. While inside, Toma screams and begs for Setsu to spare him, but it is already too late, as his consciousness slowly fades. A few hours later, Toma wakes up to see Setsu beside him and asks why he spared him. In response, Setsu tells him that murdering him was never his goal, and that he simply let Glutton eat only the curse cast on him by the necklace, so he can fulfill their promise to each other. Hearing this, Toma bursts into tears and tells Setsu that he has done so many terrible things, but Setsu assures him there's still plenty of time to atone. A few weeks later, Setsu, along with Dizes and Regulus, meets Toma in his prison cell to deliver his sentence. To earn his freedom, Setsu tells Toma to use transfer magic to send all their classmates back to their original world. Shocked, Toma asks if that's all. After Setsu confirms that it is, Dizes and Regulus assure him they aren't worried about him causing trouble in the future, because casting the transfer spell will leave him with almost no magical power. A few days later, Toma invokes a massive transfer spell circle and sends everyone back to their original world. Afterward, he meets Setsu at the city wall, says his goodbyes, and begins a lifelong journey to explore the world while atoning for his sins. Shortly after, Setsu also prepares for another retirement trip. While saying goodbye to Elka and the others, Yui shows up, also packed and ready to travel alongside him, so Setsu takes her along. Days later, they meet with Levia to ensure the seas are peaceful, only to find her fighting with a giant octopus monster. After enjoying the fight, they travel down to the demonic kingdom to check up on Dizes and Ruri. After confirming that things are good with them, they visit the Beastman capital and find out that Roa, Shiro, and Mineko have now become commanders of Regulus's private army. That's the end of today's video. If you stayed until now, comment down below Mommy Milkers. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see hot recaps like this. Don't forget to check out the next video.